I'm going to prove the point of this presentation before you even know what it's about. Enjoy.
Technology is ruining communications. How technology has changed the way we communicate with each other.
Humans don't even need to speak anymore. A machine will do it for them.
Everyone watching knows what these are, and chances are you have one of these specific models within a couple of feet of where you are right now. But have you seen one of these? How about one of these? Or one of these? The sound you're hearing is the sound that all of us who were born before 1980 know all too well. You had to put your finger in one of those little holes and spin the wheel all the way to the metal stop. If you didn't spin the wheel all the way to the end, you'd have to start dialing all over again. Try calling someone long distance with one of these. I did every weekend when I'd call my grandmother. These were called rotary phones, and they were a pain in the backside before touch-tone phones, like the first one shown here, came along. Today I'm going to talk to you about how technology has changed the way we communicate. Before I do that, it may benefit you to understand how technology has advanced over the past 100 years. In no way is this presentation comprehensive or complete. The history of communications would cover an entire degree worth of classes, so let's begin. The Audion vacuum tube was invented in 1906 by inventor Lee DeForest. It was the first triode, which consisted of a vacuum-sealed glass tube, 3 electrodes, a heated filament, a grid, and a plate. It's important to the history of technology because it was the first widely used electronic device that amplified a small electrical signal. This transmitter first made its appearance in 1914, and unless you're into antique radios like I am, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you. But it did lead to this.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man.
The radio became a popular appliance in many households in the 1920s. The dialogue you just heard was the opening from the War of the Worlds in 1938. The designs of many of these radios made them the centerpiece of living room furniture. On August 31st, 1920, the first known radio news program aired on station 8MK, the unlicensed predecessor of WWJ-AM in Detroit, Michigan. It wasn't until 1933 that frequency modulation, or FM radio, was patented by another inventor, Edwin H. Armstrong. It was around this time that analog televisions began broadcasting in some parts of Europe and North America. By the end of the 1930s, there were around 25,000 television receivers worldwide, with the majority of them in the UK. Armstrong's FM system was designated by the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC as most people know it, to transmit and receive television sound. Computers had been used by the Allies and the Axis powers in World War II, mostly to encrypt communications. Thanks in part to the invention of the transistor, which makes an electric switch without the need for a vacuum, and the creation of what would become the programming language COBOL by Grace Hopper, computers moved into business and government applications in the 1950s. Of course, these computers were gigantic, and a single smartphone today has more computing power than all the computers in the 1950s and 60s combined. These were known as mainframe computers. In 1976, the Apple I computer was introduced. It started co-founder Steve Jobs down the path of thinking that all computers in the future would use a graphical user interface, or a GUI for short. In 1983, the Apple Lisa, named after Jobs' estranged daughter, became the first computer sold to the public with a GUI. More on Jobs later. Finally, bulletin board systems, or BBSs, became popular in the 1980s due to inexpensive dial-up network connections. Bulletin boards were precursors to the World Wide Web and social networks where people could interact with each other. The sound that you just heard was a commonplace in every home before the popularity of broadband internet, and the sound of a modem connecting with another modem. In the 1990s, technology began to change. While the first brick cell phone was used in 1973, it weighed 2.5 pounds and had a battery life of just 20 minutes. In 1995, the Motorola StarTAC became the first flip phone, and cell phones began to crop up everywhere thanks in part to the movie Clueless. Later, phones such as the Motorola Razr became the industry standard with up to 7 hours of battery life. But cell phones for many in the 1990s were still a luxury. Laptops had been around since the Osborne 1 in 1981, but it weighed an astonishing 24.5 pounds and had a whopping 5-inch screen. In 1989, Compaq released its first notebook PC, the Compaq LTE. In October of 1991, Apple released the Macintosh PowerBook 100, 140, and 170, all notebook-style laptops. A year later, IBM released its ThinkPad 700 laptop. While cell phones and laptops made huge advances in the market, most communications in the 1990s still took place via mobile pagers. Beepers, as they were referred to, dominated the marketplace. Invented by Motorola in 1959, this device, about half the size of a deck of cards, contained a small receiver that delivered a radio message individually to others carrying a pager. In the early 1980s, there were 3.2 million pager users worldwide. By 1994, more than 61 million were in use. Users could send a number of messages from I love you to good night using a set of numbers and asterisks. In 2007, communications changed. Remember Steve Jobs from the photo earlier in this presentation? Well, after losing his position in Apple in 1985, only to be reinstated in 1997, he made this market-changing announcement.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
So how technology has changed. In 1981, phones were corded. If you ever had to deal with a corded phone, you know the pain of untangling that cord. People met up in public to communicate with each other. Social situations were common, with men having poker nights and women hosting bunco parties. Kids, like shown in this scene from South Park, played outside on playgrounds. Social interactions were necessary to human existence, and in the 1980s, this all happened face to face. In 2021, most people that I know don't own a home phone. People rely on their cell phones. A lot of millennials, including my own kids, prefer to text message rather than making a voice call. Sometimes I get lucky and actually get them to make a FaceTime call so that I can actually see them and talk to them. We communicate with our friends via social media. Friends itself has become an obsolete word, as many people have friends on their social media accounts that they have never met in person. Beyond social media, many people hang out in groups while playing online video games. South Park again tackled this group of people, representing them by overweight, unkempt, slovenly people with carpal tunnel. It was meant as a joke, but technology has not only ruined communications, but made us lazy as a society as well. People in general spend too much time on social media. This graph represents the number of minutes the average person spends every day on social networks. In 2012, the average time spent daily was an hour and a half. But in 2019, that number increased by an additional hour each day. 2020 numbers were not included in this graph because the numbers were increased due to the global pandemic. I wanted to represent how much time people spent daily under normal circumstances on sites like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So how can we change things? We can limit the amount of time we spend on social media. Each of us needs to take personal accountability to understand just how much time we waste on social media websites. We can set realistic screen limits for our kids. Children should have no more than 2 hours of daily screen time. Right now, the average child spends more than 7 hours daily on some sort of screen, be it cell phone, computer, or television. We need to spend more time outdoors, walking, biking, swimming, and just enjoying the wonders of nature. There's a big, beautiful world out there beyond the screen. And a quote that I personally enjoy comes from a popular video game, World of Warcraft. And it says, Bring your friends to Azeroth, but don't forget to go outside with them as well. This disclaimer shows that Blizzard, the creator of the game, understands that people spend too much time in their virtual world. For more information, you can check out these websites. I hope that you've learned something and it makes an impact in your daily life, or at least gets you thinking about how much time you spend in front of a screen. Thank you for watching.